morning, millennials. We are so excited to welcome to the podcast a comedy icon and now a fellow podcaster, Chelsea Handler. Hello, Chelsea. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, hello, girls. How are you?
We're good. We're so honored and humbled to have you joining the prestigious circle of podcasters. You're really elevating our brand, and we really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're very welcome, girls.
Okay, you have a new podcast, Dear Chelsea, advice-based podcast. First of all, you've done everything. You've conquered like TV, books. Why podcasting?
Well, I mean, everybody has a podcast. So obviously I had one, and then I had a first one when I was on my book tour like 2 years ago. And then when I was done with it, was a limited one. When I was done, they said, well, you should do another one, a more long-term one. And I just wanted to figure out a way to do it in a more creative way than just adding to the mix of podcasts. And I thought, you know what? Who's more unqualified to give advice than me?
Yes. 100%. Yeah. So the format of your podcast, Dear Chelsea, you have people submit advice and you just give your take on it based on your life experience. How and why did you land on that format? Like, is it important to you to be able to connect with people listening to the podcast? Why did you choose that?
Well, because I've been through a lot of therapy and people do come to me a lot for problems. Like, I'm a crisis manager. I'm very good in a crisis. So I figured, what would be a good way to not make this just another vanity project, to make it about other people instead of making it about myself. So it was a great way to connect with people, have my fans call in. People call in with real serious problems. And if I'm out of my wheelhouse, I have an expert come in or somebody who specializes in eating disorders or, a psychiatrist or something like that, depending on what the problems are. So yeah, it's been really good. I mean, some problems are really stupid and those are fun. And some are really, really serious.
Well, we're going to get your take because we have some listeners with some questions for you. But what would you say is your style of advice giving? Like, are you someone who's super prudent? Like, what Claudia and I are
differ a lot.
We differ in terms of the advice that we give, but what's your style?
I'm tough. I'm like, listen, I want everyone to be a little bit braver and a little bit bolder. And I want you to go be your best self, and like appreciate and love and worship yourself. So I'm all about getting everybody to be standing in their power a little bit more. But yeah, I don't have any time for bullshit.
I am pretty much the same way. And where Jackie and I really differ the most is we get a lot of messages, and one today in particular about snooping through like your boyfriend's phone. Are you a snoop or not to snoop kind of gal?
Yeah, I think snooping is okay.
I completely agree.
I mean, listen, it's like I have a right to go through your phone if I'm dating you, and you have a right to go through mine, and that's where we'll leave it.
See, that's where I draw the line. I'm allowed to go through your phone, but if you even come within 5 feet of my phone, I'm chopping your fucking hand off.
See, that's how I don't care if anyone goes through my phone. There's nothing that I have that's secretive. You know what I mean?
Really? That's so funny. Okay, well, you have a million projects going on. New HBO Max comedy special, your first in 6 years. It's called Evolution. It's much different than a lot of the stuff you've done. It's very like introspective. Why has it been so long since you released a comedy special?
I just didn't really have that much to say. You know what I mean? I got sick of my own voice and sick of stand-up when there wasn't something really like, more meaning behind it. So this one felt more like, I could make a special that says something instead of just, making a bunch of jokes that lead nowhere. It was more of like a story and a narrative. So I loved it. I went back and then I found, fell in love with doing stand-up again. So that's fun. I wasn't expecting to do that.
Yeah, and the vibe is like palpably different. And I feel like where we really connected, we talk a lot about on the show about grief because our dad passed away when we were in high school. And you really go into that on the special. And I'm curious if you have a piece of advice for people listening who are either dealing with grief or just mourning the loss of someone or something.
Well, I think it's a good way to look. It's just to, I look at it like no one's ever gone. Energy doesn't die, it transforms. And that's just science. So clearly, there's different, probably, someone said this to me the other day about life and death. He said, when you're born, before you're born, you're in the womb, you're in a sack of fluid and you have no exposure to anything or anyone. And basically that's one dimension. And when you're born, you come into the world and that's another dimension. And so if you think of dying as being born, you're just kind of slipping into another dimension. It doesn't mean you're not here where I can see you, but you're here still. And I know that to be true because I'm so much closer to my mom now that she's dead than I was when she was alive. I talk to my mom all the time and I know when she's around and I know when she's not.
Yeah, I think I actually completely agree. And I feel like it's very comforting for me and for people who are grieving, just at the thought of like, it's not like poof gone. Cause that's like the hardest part of losing someone. It's like waking up one day and the person who used to be there is just like not there anymore.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It's very hard to obviously get through this, and I'm sorry for your loss, but it's nice to see that you have each other to lean on, because
Yes.
that's really what it's all about. It's about being able to share the experience together and be able to like go through your grief, don't try and cover it up or stuff it down or push it away. It's like if you can sit and go with your grief and sit in your grief, you get through the anguish and the pain much quicker than if you try
Yes.
and just deflect or not talk about it or anything like that.
Yeah, and if you try and like, do it yourself, like I feel like for so long I was like, I don't want to talk about it with anyone, like I'll deal with it myself. But like when you have good people around you, it's so beneficial to like lean on them because no human being is meant to go through that alone. It's so difficult.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's what your friends are for. And it's a powerful thing to ask for help. And it doesn't feel that way. A lot of people have a hard time with that. I definitely did for a long time until I realized like, vulnerability doesn't have to be weakness. It is a strength. It's a strength to be vulnerable, to have enough confidence in yourself to tell the truth, whether it makes you look sad, angry, selfish or self-absorbed or whatever. It's really important to be, truth, like honest with yourself about what you're going through and to go through it, not to try and hopscotch around it.
Yeah, because it
100%.
comes out in other ways regardless. It's coming out.
Totally.
It's coming out of somewhere.
Yeah, because otherwise it taps you on the shoulder like 20 years later and you're like, oh fuck, what is this?
No, 100%. And I feel like it actually gets harder the more time the more space that's put between you and like the moment of loss. Like I feel like I'm in a worse place now than I was like when I in high school, like the first day of freshman year when my dad like dropped dead of a heart attack. Like I feel like I'm actually dealing with it worse now because I didn't deal with it very well as a child.
Right. Well, you didn't have the articulation, like you didn't have the words to describe that kind of pain. So now as an adult, you're like, oh, now it's like delayed grief, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yes.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
worse.
know.
One more thing I wanted to ask you about before we get your advice, because I'm really curious to hear your takes on some of these things. You've been talking a lot on your podcast, but also in your special about like your wellness journey with cannabis. And I'm curious how you got into that and like what are some of the benefits? Is that something we should be doing?
Yeah, totally. Microdosing cannabis is a great way to get through the day. And it really helps like accent certain situations. You know what I mean? For me, I have a patience problem. Like I find people incredibly annoying when they're slow or when they're like things take too long, like transactions take too long. So for me, it sands down the edges in that way where I can just be like, oh, who gives a shit? I'm not going to get upset about that. And it mellows me out. And I also love it for sleep. But for other people, and like even for writing, for punching stuff up, there are certain edibles that kind of give you an upper. And so I love that feeling. I love to get creative on them. But you have to just direct your own experience, And with microdosing now, everything is labeled. You know exactly what you're putting in and what you're getting. It's not like you're getting a cookie, at a party filled with pot and you don't know what's in it. It's so easy to so it's not that the point isn't for me to feel like, oh, completely out of control or blottoed. It's just supposed to enhance different experiences. So you kind of use it. Like, I don't want cannabis to use me. I want to use cannabis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Interesting. Gotta try that out.
Gotta look into it.
Yeah.
Especially those transactions.
Those transactions.
That's where my patience runs.
That's where my edges need to be sanded down for
The
sure.
self-checkout machine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. If I knew how to use a self-checkout machine, I would love that.
Oh my God, it's torture.
It really is.
Okay, so we do a weekly advice segment called Dear Toasters. People write in about all their different problems at work and their relationship. We've selected a few that we would love to get your advice on, and we'll read them to you and you let us know what you think.
Okay. First up, Dear Toasters. So here's the situation. I'm about to be 25 years old and I've never had sex. Don't get me wrong, I've done stuff, but never sex. It's not that I haven't had the opportunity to, I just haven't met the person I want to experience that with yet. I'm not waiting for marriage, and at this point, I'm not really even waiting to be in love, but I just wanted to be with someone that I like and trust and am in a committed relationship with. I've never been in a relationship either. I'm very picky and have only dated 3 guys I could see that happening with. My question is, now that I'm approaching 25, I feel like this is a huge turnoff for guys. I'm worried that I'll meet a guy I like and feel I want to grow our relationship, but once he finds out I'm a 25-year-old virgin, he will want to bounce. How do you think I should approach this issue when dating in the future without scaring them away? I've had friends tell me I don't even have to tell the guy, but I don't think that's smart, especially if I want to be in a healthy relationship with them. I've also had people tell me they won't care, but I just don't buy that. Any advice or insight would be much appreciated since you all have great insight. Thank you. A RDH virgin.
What do you think?
Well, that's old to not have had sex, but if she really wants to wait, then that's her decision, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
if you and stop projecting all of the things that are going to go wrong about if you don't do it and if you tell your next boyfriend that he's not going to want you. I mean, you're creating a total negative dialogue in your head that doesn't even exist yet. So, like, we all do this. We all have these voices in our head that sets up all the things that could go wrong, but instead of thinking about all the things that could go right. My advice, if she was looking to have sex, I'd be like, just find somebody to have sex with soon so you can get the ball rolling. And then, you know, if you can't, if you really want to be with somebody that you trust and you're in a relationship with, then yeah, you got to make the effort to make that happen. And don't worry about you being a virgin. Some guy's going to love that.
Yeah, I think that the road of not telling someone is deeply problematic, and I really don't suggest that at all.
Yeah, I think, but I also think like it's clearly something that's important to her, and I think that the right person for her will appreciate this about her, and I think it could be a nice thing. Maybe she'll meet a fellow virgin.
A fellow virgin.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's true. There's probably virgin sites out there where virgins can hook up with other virgins, right?
Totally. I feel like virginhood has been like really like a bad stigma ever since Colton Underwood like went on The Bachelor. Like everyone made fun of him for being like a 29-year-old virgin, but it's a choice and it's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a choice.
I agree with you, Chelsea. I wouldn't focus on the negative things that could happen. Like wait for those things to happen and then we can worry about it.
Right. Like these potential scenarios are just living rent free in your mind when they literally are not even ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, next one. Dear Toasters, I need advice. My long-term boyfriend and I had a COVID breakup. There was no bad blood, no cheating or anything like that. I just felt we were in different places in life and I needed my space. We left things as we both need space and time to work on ourselves, and we will see what happens in the future if it's meant to be. Fast forward 4 months post breakup, and he reaches out to me saying he still loves me and wants to try and work it out. But the thing is, I had a rough night one night a few weeks ago and decided to log into his Instagram because I know his password. I know this is wrong and horrible, but I couldn't help myself. His DMs were filled with him messaging other girls, so much flirting and talking about planning dates, it made me sick to my stomach. Now, I don't know what to do. I can never admit I read his DMs, but it's caused me so much confusion. Do I want him back now because I'm jealous and he's getting attention from other girls? Does he actually want to get back together with me? If so, why is he planning other dates? Also, part of me is like, fuck you for sliding into other girls' DMs while I'm just over here working on myself. Any advice? Love, a very confused toaster.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Well, weren't they broken up, she said? Were they broken up?
Yeah,
and they were supposed to be working on themselves, and he's working on the DMs, and she feels like he can't really want to get back together with her if he's been like spending all this time.
Right. Also, if I were her, I would feel like, you know, he shot his shot, and it didn't seem like the girls
I'm the only one left.
were responding, and so he's back to her. I don't know. This would rub me the wrong way.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it's already rubbed. Like the whole thing has already cut him loose. Like it's already there's bad vibes going around. If you're scrolling through his phone like that, like I'm all for it. You know, like. I am all for going through someone's phone, but not in this circumstance because they're not together. They're not in a relationship. You know what I mean? So like you already overstepped and that was invasive. So there's just too much ickiness around this. So it's better to cut the cord and move on, I think.
And there's a reason it didn't work out. Like this is obviously not your person. So I wouldn't invest any more time or energy into like scrolling through his DMs or even giving this any more effort because you've already decided this is not the man for you.
Yeah, you broke up for a reason. I would stick with that gut instinct. Yeah. And then I think the DMs, you can use those to just further solidify why you need to move on.
100%.
Okay, third and final. Dear Toasters, I need to know if I'm being a bitch. My boyfriend of 3.5 years and I have a very honest and trusting relationship. We're transparent with each other about who we hang out with. We both have close friends of the opposite sex, etc. But this is something I was not prepared for. My ex-boyfriend recently got hired at my current boyfriend's job and they work very closely together. They're becoming work friends and are spending most of their workday together. This aggravates the shit out of me. This guy is my ex for a reason. He made my life miserable. I don't understand why my boyfriend is okay with palling around with someone who was once so horrible to me. I talked to him about it and he brushed it off because they're just work friends. My question is, am I overreacting? We've never been the type of couple that says you can't be friends with this person. I don't know how to feel. Thank you, a bitter, aggravated toaster.
But we don't know what level of abusive he was, right? Like what,
Right.
emotionally abusive, physically abusive? What are we talking about? Well, I mean, either
Right.
one isn't really acceptable, but yeah, that's so annoying. I hate when people are not loyal. Like, I fucking hate that shit. You know, your boyfriend isn't even protective over you. Like, that drives me up a wall if you have a boyfriend that's not like, no, I'm never going to hang out with that guy.
Yeah.
So, her boyfriend sounds like a little bit of a dud. I think she should be fucking pissed.
Yeah, it's like, it's seemingly not a big deal, but there's actually a lot of undercover red flags about this. Like, first of all, just respect the fact that I don't want you hanging out with this person. Don't like fight me back so you can have like a bromance with your work friend. And second of
Exactly.
all, like, he shouldn't like this guy. Like, if this guy was however he was to you, like, and he knows about it, he should like punch him in the office and get suspended and go to HR.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think you're being a bitch. I think this is cause for concern.
Yeah, I mean, you might be. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't like a real, like if the relationship was okay and they broke up and she just didn't like how it ended and they're hanging out, then she kind of is overreacting. But if he truly is an asshole, you know, like and did things that are kind of unforgivable, then yeah, your boyfriend shouldn't be hanging out with him. Yeah, and your
Agreed.
boyfriend needs to get a spine. What is he, Lindsey Graham?
No,
No.
this is some spineless, like, first season housewife kind of
Also,
shit.
there's other people in the workplace to pal around with.
100%. Do you work at a startup? Like, how many people work there?
There's always other coworkers.
Always. Well, that is our show, everyone. Chelsea's podcast with iHeartRadio is called Dear Chelsea. It's available anywhere you get your podcast. Her new special, Evolution, is streaming on HBO Max. Thank you so much for being here. You're an icon. We love you, and you're the best.
Oh, love you, girls. Thanks. Have a great day.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.